Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to another book review. Thank you for tuning in to another book review. And so today I'm reviewing the work of Park Min-gyu. So I'll explain who he is, why his stories are interesting, and I'll talk about three of his short stories that show his range as a writer. So I'll talk about Roadkill, Dinner with Buffett, and Is That So? I'm a Giraffe. So imagine a future where corporations replace countries and refugees become literal roadkill. A billionaire who finally meets someone who's not buying what he's selling or what money is selling at all. And a young worker whose job is pushing strangers into trains until the system pushes him out altogether. So I will talk about how Park blends humor, surreal images, and sharp social critique to ask what money and power do to ordinary lives. And hopefully, by the end of the video, you'll know what each story is about, how each one reads, and where you should start with Park Min-gyu. So, hello everyone. I'm Barry, and this is Seoul Book Club. And if you're looking for an interesting, distinctive, and possibly even unique literary voice, or you simply want to sample and find a way into modern Korean literature, you could do far, far worse than the occasionally controversial, frequently eccentric novelist and short story writer Park Min-gyu. And in particular, these three stories that I'm going to talk about today: Roadkill, Is That So? I'm a Giraffe, and Dinner with Buffett. But first, just let me give you a little background information on Park. So Park was born in Ulsan, which is in the southeast of South Korea, in 1968. And he burst onto the scene, the literary scene, in 2003 with two debut novels in the same year. And they were called, one of them was called Legend of the World Superheroes, and the other one was called The Sammy Superstars Last Fan Club. And they immediately, or very quickly picked up some major literary prizes. I don't think either of those books have been translated into English yet, actually. Since then, though, he's become just as famous for his short fiction, and he's had at least two collections. There's a collection called Castella and a collection called Double. And the title story of Castella is available online. I was going to include it today, but I just didn't have time. So I'll try and review that one sometime in the future. And there are one or two other Park Min-gyu short stories you can find online. But anyway, readers here in Korea, and now English readers as well, love Park for his tone, the tone of his writing, which is often very playful, imaginative, sometimes bizarre, and always sharp about how capitalism shapes everyday life. He also cultivates a quirky public image, and he often appears at readings in oversized goggles, which he collects, and this seems to fit the offbeat intelligence, the offbeat nature of his work. Kind of looks like like something out of a Terry Gilliam film or something like that. I met him once, and he was wearing these goggles, and he told us that he has like a collection of them. When he hunts out these goggles in secondhand shops and flea markets and this kind of thing. But anyway, his unconventional, this unconventional approach to things is also apparent in his writing style, and he kind of sent shockwaves through the Korean literature scene when he debuted, and very quickly established himself as both a talented stylist and as a writer, seemingly deeply committed to investigating the political, economic, and cultural developments that have taken place in Korea in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. And like I said, his writing has been very influential. And critics often note, or the Korean literature critics note, that his style is remarkably difficult to mimic, and some would even argue as to characterize. And one of his contemporaries, a fellow novelist called Kim Young-ha, said had a lovely way of describing his work, and he is trying to sum up the appeal of Park Min-gyu, and he said that Park has written peculiar, delightful sentences that have never existed before in Korean literature. That's a lovely way of talking about his work. And yeah, so we'll see that he uses this unique style to talk about a recurring theme in his work, which is the impact of capitalism or related processes on the individual. So let's start with roadkill, and we can see what this sensibility looks like on the page. So, Roadkill is a celebrated science fiction short story. It was originally published in 2001 in Korean in a literary journal. And it would go on to win the highly regarded Oh Yong-soo Literary Award, also in 2011. And it's actually been translated and published twice in English. So in 2013, Esther Song's translation was published in the Azalea Journal of Korean Literature and Culture. And they, in 2013, they did a special feature on contemporary Korean science fiction, and they included Esther Song's translation of Roadkill. And then a second translation, this time credited to Esther Song and Gordseller, was published in the Ready-Made Bodhisattva collection of Korean science fiction. And I've dipped into this a couple of times. I've reviewed this on the channel before. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, sorry, not much room on my table. Park's work is often surreal, bizarre, and humorous. But he retains this very sort of strong sense of empathy for his characters, and we can see all of these elements in this story. And he fully embraces the sci-fi genre here. So Roadkill is set in a not too distant future. Countries have been replaced by giant mega corporations. So the countries of Asia have all been amalgamated into one single mega corporation, and it's simply just called Asia, and it exists as a kind of technocratic future state. And the poor and disenfranchised workers of previous centuries, previous decades, they're just no longer even necessary. And so the sort of the underclass, which is almost everyone who is alive in the present, they've essentially just been cast out of mainstream society. And these poor souls amass along the border of this sort of mega corporation city state, and with some of them making sort of regular desperate attempts to try and break in. And it's an excellent story, and it draws on issues from our world today and extrapolates what the future will look like if we don't change course. So Park is addressing a range of really quite significant issues in this story. So he's talking about corporatization, immigration, wealth inequality, and how does he weave all these things into the story? So Roadkill has two storylines that eventually connect in sort of unexpected ways. And in the first story, we're introduced to two robots who patrol this border area between the Asia mega corporation and the outside world. And the robots are called Mark Shi and Mao. And their job specifically is to remove the dead bodies of those who've tried to cross the ultra fast shuttle system on the border and been hit by a train. So, people regularly try to sort of get into this mega corporation, but they have to cross this transport system, and they just get sort of mashed up by the trains. And these two robots, they have to clean the bodies away. And so this is how the story begins. We have these two robots clearing away the remains of some very poor and unfortunate souls who've made this desperate attempt to get into the Asia mega corporation. And Mark Shi is the main character here. And as is often the case in stories like this, Mark Shi seems to be becoming aware that something just isn't right. Why, Mark Shi wonders, are humans so careless with their lives? Why do they throw their lives away in such a futile and seemingly meaningless way? What's the point of it? And Mark Shi is also getting bored with his work and starting to wonder, what does it all mean? So, of course, this is a very familiar sci fi trope, the robot that becomes sentient and is beginning to gain consciousness. But what is the other storyline in Roadkill? So, the other strand is equally gripping, fantastic stuff. So, this is set in a gambling den in the area outside of Asia. So, imagine a kind of crime ridden, dystopian cyberpunk shanty town. And you have a young man, and he's facing off against an older man in a game of Russian roulette for a crowd of yelling gamblers. And the young man has won 8 such similar matches in the past. And the older man is the legendarily lucky survivor of several dozen of these type of matches. And actually, there was a film about 25 years ago called Intacto about people which like tested their luck against each other. And this scene kind of reminded me of that film, actually. And anyway, as this young guy and the older guy, as they drink and they smoke and they're taking turns to put the gun to their head, they have a conversation about the world they live in now and what it was like in the past. And the older man can remember a time when he had a family and a career and he went on luxurious holidays. And this was before technology advanced and just rendered him just literally obsolete, redundant. The need for workers was almost entirely eliminated, and he was among the people who just weren't necessary anymore. But the younger man, however, he grew up after this had happened. He grew up in the world after this had already been done. Was already finished. So the jobs had already vanished, and only a select few get to live inside the walls of this sort of techno utopia kind of nation states. And so instead, he lives among a sort of seething mass of humanity. He doesn't. There's no real family units. He doesn't have a real family. He just has a few kind of gang members that he relies on, but who might turn on him at any moment if there's a better opportunity. And the story seems to ask, is this world approaching us? So, in these days, with the excitement and fears around generative AI and all this kind of stuff, these sort of concerns have kind of come to the fore once again, right? Are we all going to be made obsolete? Will we be given UBI or something like this? But anyway, these concerns are what Park is writing about in this story. So, what is he saying about our relationship with technology here? So, there's a lot of things to say about this story. It's very much part of the dystopian trend we can find in a lot of Korean sci-fi. So, if you think about the books and stories like that I've reviewed by people such as Bae Myung-hoon or Kim Bo-young or Kim Chang-yu, many of them, of course, depict the future as a kind of dystopian future. And Park Sun-young writes, and she was writing this Azalea sci-fi special. Park Sung-young writes that one of the features of Korean SF is a strong sense of the apocalypse having already happened, whether through war, colonization, dictatorship, or the corporate monopolization of resources. Technophilia, utopia, and an optimistic vision are rarely to be found. And Park's story fits perfectly with these anxieties. So it's a story that's worried about technological development, it's worried about corporate power, and so on. And the story also asks us to compare and contrast the lives of its robot protagonist and its human protagonist. And Heron Shin also writing in that. Sorry, Sun Young Park might have actually been writing in the Ready-Made Bodhisattva volume. And sorry, Heron Shin is writing in the Azalea sci-fi special. And Heron Shin writes that if robots are the crystallization of human rationality and the pulsing vitality of human desire, we see in the unfortunate fate of the refugees invariably qualify as roadkill. What or who is left to define, perceive, and walk the road? So, what is the point, Park seems to be asking, of developing the technology if it leads us to this position where the mass of humanity is just discarded? And it's just another fantastic Park Min-gyu story. Might be my favorite one of his stories, actually. I really enjoyed it a lot. Very thought-provoking sci-fi story, and just a great example of several trends in Korean sci-fi in general. So let's move on. If roadkill is imagining people that are discarded by these sort of capitalist and technological systems, Dinner with Buffett asks what happens when someone just quietly refuses the systems, the offer the system makes to you. So, Dinner with Buffett, translated by John Sung-hee. Yeah, is that right? Wait a minute. Yeah, Chon Sung-hee. And so the Buffett of the title is Warren Buffett, the famous Wall Street investor. And so we're kind of dropping into a strange day in Buffett's life. He's in the back of his limo. He's stuck in traffic during a kind of an Occupy Wall Street kind of protest in the wake of a financial crisis. And I think we've meant to take it that I think we've meant to take it like it's 2008. It's after the financial crisis in 2008. But it could be any financial crisis, I guess, really. And he after being stuck in traffic, he rushes into a very tense meeting with the U.S. president, and the president hints at a looming world reshaping crisis that may be war, maybe even be something extraterrestrial, or just some kind of significant event that is likely going to upend the global order. So Buffett leaves this meeting obviously very unsettled, and then he hurries to a very different kind of appointment. So you may or may not be aware that every year, or up until a few years ago, Warren Buffett did this sort of annual charity lunch where people could bid to get a one-on-one lunch with Warren Buffett, where they could pick his brain for investment advice. And this was a real thing for many years, but I think it stopped, quite several years ago. And anyway, in the story, this year's winner, though, breaks the pattern. He's a young Korean guy named An, who won the lottery and spent the entire lottery windfall just to meet Buffett. And he arrives in a hoodie, to this very fancy restaurant. He's eaten a McDonald's before he even got there. He works at a convenience store, and he seems just completely uninterested in hearing what Warren Buffett has to say about investing or financial management or any of these things that people usually want to sort of squeeze out of Warren Buffett at these meetings. And when Buffett does try to offer advice, and just simply says he's fine, whatever, yeah, I'm fine, I'm okay. And this sort of simple refusal and rejection rattles Buffett more than the president's warning of this potential world changing event. And Park kind of frames the lunch as a kind of a cross examination of the age of investment. Buffett remembers. Buffett was an old man in 2008, but he remembers selling gum as a child, like surviving the depression, the oil shocks, getting on the cover of magazines like Time and Fortune, and he's donated vast sums of money, and he thinks he's been living in this golden era of acquisition, but he senses that the sun may be setting on that era. And Anne's indifference to him becomes a mirror. If someone declines the bargain that money offers, what is left? What exactly is left of the logic that has governed Buffett's world for most of his life during this golden age of acquisition? And the story reads like a critique of the way money takes us hostage. But it doesn't have a sort of lecturing tone. This encounter just sort of sits in your mind, and it's unsettling and strange and just sort of fascinating. And so then that was Dinner with Buffett. Let's move on to Is That So I'm a Giraffe? So if Dinner with Buffett is sort of testing the logic of money in theory, Is That So I'm a Giraffe is how these sort of systems just affect an ordinary person, an ordinary person trying to get by. And so Park, you can tell in these three stories, Park often returns to money, status, and the sort of violence of conformity. And you see that again. Is that so? I'm a giraffe. This one's translated by Sora Kim Russell, and this it takes place during a different economic crisis, or sort of economic period of economic difficulty. And this is in 1989, and this is during a sort of very difficult time in the South Korean economy. We have a sort of a vocational high school student who is sort of juggling several low-paying part-time jobs to help support his, very, underclass, working class background. And while his family is sort of disintegrating in the background of the story, he gets a job as a pushy man. And the pushy man worked on the Seoul subway in the 1990s, and they physically shoved commuters into overcrowded trains at some of the busy stations. Like I found a great photo of one of these guys at Shinderim station, trying to literally physically shoving people into the train during rush hour. And they don't have these people anymore. They have people sort of controlling how many people can enter the subway sometimes during rush hour. And sometimes I have to get the subway at sort of slam bang in the middle of rush hour, and it really can be quite unpleasant here. You really are sort of sardines in a tin, just sort of you get stuffed in there. But I guess in the 90s, it was maybe even worse. And on the surface, this story, it might kind of sound like just a sort of simple slice of life, this guy trying to get by, working these jobs. But Park layers in this sort of surreal imagery, this surreal giraffe imagery, and sort of social texture. And the job this guy is doing connects to the larger political and economic changes of the era, right? And so really what Park's taking aim at here, his subject here is really the modernization project that the South Korean government was pursuing and pushing at the time, and the effect it had on individuals and human relationships, and all this kind of thing. And the story, Park keeps asking, kind of with like a sardonic smile, how far will we bend to fit the system, and what does it cost us to resist? And it's compact, and it's strange, and unexpectedly very moving. And so yeah, writers admire Park for the same reasons that readers do. So like I told you about the Kim Young-ha. Kim Young-ha, said that his sentences are so peculiar and delightful that you want to steal them. And people also sort of note that Park's work dodges maybe some of the stereotypes that people bring to Korean literature, or used to bring to Korean literature, but they still capture something about where Korean writing is or has been over the past 2 decades. Humor is real, the sadness is real, and the insights still feel very fresh. I reread like Buffett to make this, and it's still just a great little short story. So is Roadkill. And if you want a starting point, try any of these stories. Roadkill is, I think you might be able to get Roadkill available online for free, or you used to be able to at one point on the Azalea website. These little Asia Publishers editions are a little trickier to pick up. But there's one or two other Park Min-gyu short stories you can find online. I think Castella, you can find that one for free online. There's one called Aspirin, which you can find for free somewhere online as well. And there might be, I think Agnel Joseph might have translated one as well. But I'm going to do Castella and Aspirin at some point in the future. There's only, as far as I'm aware, only one of his novels is available in English so far. It's called Pavane for a Dead Princess. And I have to confess, I started reading this a while ago, and I was a little disappointed. Given how much I like his short stories, it didn't immediately grip me, and I sort of put it to one side and then got distracted by other books. But I will come back and try and finish this book sometime, and hopefully some of his other novels will get translated as well. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you've read any Park Min-gyu, please tell me which story stuck with you and why. And if you're new to Park Min-gyu, let me know if you plan on reading any of these stories. And both of them, all three of these stories have a strange and compelling mixture of tones and styles that Park does a very good job of weaving together. They're satirical, they're surreal, they're humorous, they're poignant, they're bleak, and ultimately just a very absurd. And these Asia Publishers editions are these, excellent bilingual editions with essays and reviews and so on. So anyway, as always, thanks for watching, and take care, and I'll see you in the next review. So stay cool and read some Park Min-gyu.